So we've seen that we can access a text file by first opening the file and then using one of the three methods, either read, read lines, or read line, to access the data that's stored in the file. There is a fourth way to access the contents of a data file, and it's a very natural way when we think about data files as sequences. Remember that when we talk about a sequence like a string or a list, we're thinking about the items in that sequence as having position. So for example, a string, the characters of that string are positioned from left to right. In a list, the items of the list are positioned from left to right. And we know that the for statement is designed to automatically allow us to iterate through each of the items of either a string or a list without any other information like position or whatever. We can simply say for each character in the string or for each item in the list, and it automatically goes through from beginning to end all of the items in the sequence. The same turns out to be true for files. If we have a file like this one, our temperature data file, we can think about this as a sequence of lines. May 60, June 68, July 74. That sequence of lines can be thought of as a natural Python sequence in that the for statement knows how to iterate line by line through the data. So for example, if I open the file, as I've done previously, simply by providing the name of the file, now instead of using read or read lines or one of the other methods, I can go ahead and simply create a straightforward for statement for every line in the file referenced by InFile. What that will do is it will automatically process each line of the file as a string. So the variable a line will take on each string, each line, one at a time from top to bottom. So for example, if I simply do print of a line, when I run this, we can see that all the lines appear. May had a 60 degree, June had 68, July 74, August 71. However, you'll notice that something else occurred that we haven't seen before. There seems to be a blank line in between each of our data lines. What's causing that? Well, the answer is that it's a combination of the print function and the contents of each line of the data file. Remember, first of all, that the print function, every time we do a print, it prints on a single line. And what that means is, at the end of the print function goes to the next line. It performs basically a carriage return. Now, typically, that's all we want. But in this particular case, where we're printing out the contents of the lines of a file, we have to remember that every line of the file actually ends in a carriage return. Remember, pictorially, here's our sequence of characters. MAY blank 60 carriage return, which was the new line character. And when I read this line, remember that the first line of the file starts at the M and it goes over and includes that new line character. So the very first string that we read is all of these characters including the new line. And so when the print function prints that entire string, it not only prints the characters that we see, but when it prints the new line, it causes us to go to the next line. So the combination of the new line as part of the data and the print function including a new line as well gives us two new lines. One after the 60 and the next one to get down to the next line. Now what if we wanted to just process this file? We could go ahead and instead of printing the lines of the file, we could take the lines and we could break them apart. So for example, we could open the file again to start at the top, and then we could say for every line of the file, let's first of all split that line into its constituent parts. And so in other words, in this case, we're going to split it into the month and the temperature. So if I do that, now my data list consists of the individual parts. So now if I print the data list, what we're going to see is a list representation of each line of the file. Notice that the split function has taken away the new line and it's taken away the space, and now a line, first the line containing May, splitting it, turns it into the list of strings May and 60, and then the print simply prints out that list. And of course we could have gone one step further and we could have taken that print away, and in its place we could process that line somehow. But for our purposes here, what's important to realize is that the for statement is an automatic way to iterate through the lines of a file, getting each line as a string, but realize that that string does include the new line character. But by splitting that line, we can then take away that new line character as well as the other white space and get at those parts. Or we could process it in any other way that we would like.